YOLO composing gloves here, and today I'm going to show you how to make this sound. Here it is in context.
I made another one.
So this is from a track by DaBaby, and it's called, it's got sort of a name, I don't know, I'm not sure how to pronounce. It's like Suge, or it's like Surge without an R, S-U-G-E. I know it is Yeah Yeah because I really like that part, the Yeah Yeah part. But this isn't generally my scene. It came up in a lesson and we wound up making this as a recreation, and the kick drum to me was like really strange. I was like, what a strange way of going about making a kick drum. So I mean, this doesn't even sound like a kick, but he used it as a kick, and so it became like the kick drum. So let's go ahead and talk about how to make this thing. So first up, we've got a harmor here, and it's not too crazy. I've got only a couple moves going on inside of harmor. So the first thing is I'm playing a D2. It is a pretty dang low note. So make sure you've got a dang low note playing your thing. Then turn your filter on. This is a crude low pass, and that's just, I know I want to shave it off and only have like low frequencies. Like if we look at what's coming out here, it's a pluck, and almost all the energy is being carried by this lowest frequency, kind of like an 808. Only these guys up here, they are going to contribute a bit to the distortion, because obviously we're going to hit this pretty hard with distortion. So that is the motive behind the low pass. Once we have that done, I also dialed in the pluck, which is a result of what you see here. So I brought the pluck way up or down, whatever direction you want to call that. And I also have a unison on. Without the unison, we just get a more mono sound. We have it on. It's a bit wider. So let me do that one more time. That was kind of fast, so that's off. And here it is on. It's nice, you know, it's a small thing, moves things to the side, makes it sound a bit bigger. That's the idea here. So nothing too crazy there. In the effects tab, I have two things going on. The first is I have a reverb with a short decay, 266 milliseconds if you want to nail it. And I believe that's all I touched in the verb, so I just turned that on without verb. So that contributes to the sense of space. So if we don't have verb, it's not going to sound like it's in any sort of real space. If we turn it on, suddenly it sounds like we've placed it in a room. So that's kind of a more important move in my book. And then I also have soft saturation. This one isn't noticeable unless you really drive it. You can just do that by turning the wet knob up. If I were to turn this off, that's what we have. Actually, more important than I initially thought. This was a move I made early on. So before I had any of my effects on, I sort of had this as my bass sound. So let's turn off all these effects. I just had like this saw wave type thing. That was it. And then I was going to hit it with what is some of my favorite processing moves, which is EQ into distortion, and then distortion into an EQ. This EQ, distortion, distortion, EQ. The order does matter quite significantly. So the first thing we do is, okay, we've made our bass sound. Now we need to shape it. And when I heard the kick drum on the original track, I said, this is gonna be, so I set up my bass sound, and then I was like, okay, I gotta come up with some distortion moves. And before I hit a distortion unit, EQs allow me to really customize how they hit the distortion. So you see you've got these pockets here. So I was like, okay, first I'm gonna make these pockets, and I sort of dialed this in after I had sort of sculpted my distortion. So I sort of made a general shape here. It wasn't this shape at first, but I got that mid range to come out. So without it and with it. So you can already hear that I'm sort of targeting the frequencies that I'm going after to get that like, wow, like there's like this nasally low mid kind of thing going on. And that's what this lives to do. You also notice I'm cutting quite drastically at the bass. And this is common in a pre-EQ, because when you run it through a distortion unit, it's gonna get boosted like crazy. And then here I actually bring it up in the final EQ. So when your very first one, you wanna be careful about bass levels. Sometimes you wanna boost them, and then the distortion will do something different. In this case, most of the time you're gonna wanna cut them. So that's what we have. Into the distortion unit, a very unusual shape for this kind of a thing. That's what we have. It's a little overkill. Anytime you go all the way up and all the way down and your sound goes all the way past this entire thing, you're gonna get this crazy noise, and it's generally gonna have a really sloppy envelope too. Like you get this ew kind of sound. You hear that at the end? Ew. That, it's really soft. I'll do it one more time. Maybe in editing, I'll normalize it so you can hear it a bit better. Like I'll unevenly make it loud so you hear the ew. And so I always have like a hard time dialing in these things, but I really like the effects it produces. So this was the shape I went for, just sort of a thing I knew out of experience and doing a lot of sound design. Then I hit it with driver. Driver's a really interesting one. It's not one I'm pulling it out more and more. It's a bit finicky, but it produces some super nice textures. So it's sort of, the Fruity Wave Shaper is what I would call like a sharp sounding distortion. Things tend to just sound really gritty with it, and that's not bad. That's just the sound that I typically get out of it. Whereas the driver has more warmth to it. So I pull it out usually. So I use the Fruity Wave Shaper to just totally distort things, and then I use driver to distort it, but also to like sort of smooth it out at the same time. So I really like driver for that. Resonance knob is low. It's at 0. You could dial this up, but you will get things can get pretty crazy pretty fast. See. So anyways, I had that set low. Messed with the frequency and the distortion, and I messed with some of these additional settings. This isn't a plugin that I've read the manual for entirely. I have a general idea what some of these things do, but most of the time, this is one of those plugins that I deliberately just pull open. I kind of know what it sounds like, and I do stuff with it. I don't worry too much about it. It's a distortion unit. That's that. One day I'll get around to learning the details. So dialed it into the settings I like. Color is worth messing with. And that is what we have going on there. After driver, we hit another post EQ, and this one's like the final tone shaping. We're almost there. We just need to dial it into the exact sound. There's a bit much on the high end if you do a back-to-back comparison. So I dip that out, high mids-ish, and we'll go ahead and toss that on. And it makes quite a big difference. Also, I'm bringing the bass way back, and that's more evident here. And it's more evident because not only am I boosting specific frequencies, this sort of gives the note of the drum, but I'm also cutting this mid region, which as a result makes the bass sound louder comparatively. So let's go ahead. Let's remove the distortion units just so you can see. That's what it would sound like without the distortion. That's what we got. That's how you make that sound in context.
Yes, I made another one.
If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.